Hello.
Yeah, hello.
Yes.
Yes, sir. The started the you can continue.
Sure.
Okay.
Hello, guys. Good morning. So, on behalf of ALS Online, I welcome you to this cult of anthropology. Okay. So, in this lecture, excuse me, white papers are there. I kept it on the table. Just bring it. So, in this lecture, let us discuss what this anthropology is and how important are the utility of this anthropology as an optional. Okay. So at mains level now, there is an opportunity for you to select an optional subject. Okay, there are close to around 24 optional subjects. There are a number of even literature subjects available. Okay. Why this anthropology? What this subject is? So in this lecture, let us discuss what this subject anthropology is. Okay. Is it an easy optional or is it something a very tough optional? Is it possible to do self-study in this subject? Okay. So that we will be discussing in this lecture. Okay. So once again, I welcome you all to this anthropology. I bet none of you might have heard about at least I will tell you maybe 1 out of 100 who are opting for this optional might have heard about this subject during their school days or during their college days. Anthropology is not a popular subject. See, hardly you can see any arts college in which you can see department of anthropology. So at university level, anthropology as a subject is not at all popular. It's something uncommon. Good somebody, some great examiner had placed this subject in the list of UPSC main examination optionals. Good. In the last 10 years or so, you can see that at least one in the top 10 might have opted anthropology as their optional. And recently, right, anthropology as an optional subject is gaining some importance. In what way is it a very easy optional? See, guys, you might have heard about the so-called popular optionals at mains level. We have geography, sociology, psychology, public administration, history, etc., which anybody can think about opting. A few years back, one student came to me and she asked me, "Sir, I'm very much interested in medical sciences. Can I opt for medical science as an optional subject?" And I asked her, "What is your qualification, educational qualification?" She said, "I have did my BSc in nursing." Okay, BSc in nursing. That means during your school days, you might have aspired much to study MBBS. Finally, might have landed in nursing. Good. So now we are having lot of interest in medical sciences, and you want to opt medical science as your optional subject. At graduation level, you have did BSc in nursing. So now you have guts to compete with the people who did their MBBS from All India Institute of Medical Science, Armed Force Medical College in Pune, JIPMER, etc. Is it possible? Will she have any idea about surgery? She'll have only minimum idea about even anatomy. She'll have only minimum idea about pharmacology, etc. So, is it possible for her to opt medical science as an optional subject, and is it possible for her to score good marks? Absolutely no. I didn't even advise her because If one cannot even understand this basic thing, I don't know what exactly they were doing in their preparation. See, this is a competitive exam in which you are going to compete with others. Okay. So in the case how these popular options, be it geography or be it history or be it sociology or be it psychology or public administration or history, why these are called as popular options? Anybody can opt these subjects and there is no need to have any special knowledge to read the subject. Okay. Then now let us come back to the subject anthropology. Okay. So what is this anthropology? And many students say, once I met one student came to me and he asked me, sir, what is this? I am very much worried about general essay. They are asking this number of this type of questions. How can I approach general essay? He was yet to start his preparation. I just told him, say, once when the stage comes, once when you clear your preliminary examination, and once when you reach that main stage, by default you will be ready to write a general essay. And if you reach that stage, there is no need for you to do any special preparation for, or there is no need for you to refer any special books for this particular paper. Okay. So, the preparation in general studies honestly will help you to write a general essay. Only thing is, we need to have a proper approach. Similarly, the same guy asked me, sir, in personality test, they are asking this question, so they are asking about engineering, they are asking about mechanical engineering. Sir, I am from science background, how I can answer these things? See, that is again a personality test. And once again, when you reach that stage, by default, you will be ready to appear in the personality test. You will be fit by default. So do not worry about all these things in the initial stages of your preparation. And again, selecting an optional. This is something very important for a student. So you may have interest in a particular subject. You may have passion for some subject. Well and good. Okay. So, this interest in a subject, passion for a subject, these all are very much important for you to master a particular subject. At the same time, we should also keep in mind that we have a time constraint here. So, how long we are going to prepare for this examination? So, for optional subject, right, hardly will have a time of 6 or 7 months. So you need to take a very clear decision. We need to identify an optional subject which you will be in a position to finish in the given time span. At the same time, we need to outperform others. That means, suppose if you choose history as an optional, there will be few who will be studying BA history, MA history, MPhil in history, and somebody, right, even after completing their PhD in history, even they will be appearing in the examination. So some 5-6 years they might have spent with that subject, but you are going to finish that entire syllabus. You are going to become a master in the subject in a matter of 6 months. So there are many things which we need to keep in mind before selecting an optional subject. Anthropology. So what is anthropology? As I told you, the term anthropology will be new for almost most of the students. Most of us might not have heard about the term anthropology during our school or college days. Anthropology is not popular at the university level. Well, there are only 40 or 42 universities in the country which offers some curriculum in anthropology. If that is the case, what's happening to the subject? Recently, in the last 10 years or so, at least one or two in the top 10 might have opted for the subject, and certainly, right, they will not be having graduation in anthropology. But the very first look at the syllabus, before that, let me tell you what is anthropology. Anthropology is the study of human beings. Anthropology refers to the study of human beings. Okay. So what we are going to study, even in sociology, even in psychology, even in history, even in medical sciences, we read about human beings only. In anthropology, what is that particular aspect which we are going to study? Anthropology is a holistic subject in which we are going to discuss about all the aspects of human being. Broadly, right, this subject is classified into I think there is an error in the camera. As a result, right, you are not in a position to see these. So better, I will pen it down. As I told you, anthropology is the study of human beings. Broadly, the subject is classified into biological anthropology, which is also called as physical anthropology. Then we have cultural anthropology. Then we have linguistics. Then we have archaeological anthropology. Then applied anthropology. Let us first discuss why anthropology is not a popular subject at university level. See, 500 students are going to appear in the UPSC main examinations with anthropology as their optional. Hardly one or two might have any degree in anthropology. So for almost everyone, right, anthropology will be a new subject. And there are number of comparative advantage in this subject when compared to most other popular optionals. We will brief what that is. But let me tell you one thing from the beginning. Every single optional, right, has its own advantage and disadvantage. Be it sociology, be it psychology, be it geography, be it history. There are pros and cons. Even in anthropology, there are some issues. Okay, but what I'm saying is there are some advantages in this subject. Because it is not a popular subject, we do not have too many professionals to deal with this subject. So let me explain you why anthropology as a subject. First, let us discuss how anthropology as a subject got evolved. During 15th century, when the Europeans, when they become comfortable with the technology in steam navigation, at the same time, there are a number of map projections. The most important one, the projection developed by Mercator. It is called as a Mercator's projection. And the maps which are drawn using this Mercator projection showed true lines. That means if you draw a straight line in the map, even in reality that will be a straight line. And as a result, navigation became very easy and people started moving to far-flung areas. And for the Europeans who left their continent in search of business, who went out, they managed to see people of different cultural groups in the Pacific Islands. Not just in Pacific Islands, even in India, in Andaman and Nicobar Islands, in Sri Lanka, in Southeast Asia, in Africa. They have come across a number of interesting cultural factors. Few practiced polygamy, few practiced polyandry. Okay. At the same time, right, there are few societies in which people practice uh, human sacrifice, and there were also few cannibals who eat human meat. For example, there is a tribe in Australia where they follow cannibalism out of love and affection. So among them, among these Australian Aboriginals, if a person becomes very old and sick, on one fine day when he feels that it's all end, I think I'm not going to live happy hereafter. At least let my grandkids have a feast today. And this grandfather, he will call all his grandkids, say, kids, all come, come, come. Okay, I think it's my day. You can please cut and you can eat. And their kids also obey. They cut and they cook and they eat the grandfather. Anthropologists who are enquiring these people, they ask them, "Hey, what you are doing? He is your own ancestor. He is your own grandfather. And why you are cutting and eating him?" And the reply from their people, right, was so amazing, so crazy. They said, "See, he is our own grandfather. We do not want this earth to eat him. So we feel better to keep him in our belly instead of burying him in the earth." So like this, right, there are number of number of cases, and this created lot of curiosity for the Europeans. And when they went back to their country, they'll be discussing about this in the church, in the family, in their university, in their college, etc. And as a result, this created some curiosity. So the people who are offered to travel far-flung areas, the missionaries, the traders, merchants, etc. They started visiting this type of far-flung areas which were unfamiliar among the Europeans, and they started making some notes about their culture, and which were in fact in return discussed in length when they returned back to their home. So this was the origin of anthropology, and slowly, right, anthropology became a separate discipline at the Oxford, in Cambridge, in Princeton, etc. Okay. So, as I told you, anthropology is not a very popular subject at academic level in India. And as I told you, there are hardly 42 universities which offers some curriculum in anthropology. Why is it so? What exactly is the problem in this subject? See, literally, we can say this anthropologist bit more than they could chew, and here lies our advantage. See, as I told you, anthropology includes we have biological anthropology, cultural anthropology, linguistics, archaeological anthropology, and applied anthropology. In biological anthropology, we discuss about organic evolution, the evolution of human beings. That is how we human beings descended from the primitive apes. We didn't descend from monkeys. We descend from apes. Recently, I saw one very funny post in WhatsApp. One kid asked its mother, "Mom, you said that God created us. Dad is saying no, we descended from monkeys. Which one is true?" That kid's mom replied in a very fantastic way. She said that yes, what you said is true. I told you about our line of evolution, our line of descent, while he spoke with you about his line of evolution. But whatever may be the case, though we had a common ancestor, though we and monkeys had a common ancestor, long back, some 180 million years ago, that line got separated, and we didn't descend directly from monkeys, but we descended from apes, the so-called Australopithecus, Homo erectus, Homo habilis. Before that, we have Dryopithecus, Oreopithecus, and Ramapithecus. And how environment played a major role in the evolution of human beings. So every single change, every single evolutionary change which happened in our ancestor was with reference to a particular stimuli from the environment. So how the changes in the environmental condition resulted in the evolution of human beings. That is one interesting chapter which forms a part of biological anthropology. Okay. Then see, we have applied human genetics. Then we also have say some recent technologies in human genetics like gene therapy. We have recombinant DNA technology, DNA fingerprinting. So just by looking at this in our syllabus right now, generally people from non-science students, they will panic. If a person from arts background, for an English graduate or a commerce graduate or an economics graduate or a history graduate, for him, The very first look at the syllabus, right, it will make him, he will feel whether these things are written in English or in Spanish. You say, no, I think it is in Mandarin. What is this? Pleistocene hominids in Southeast Asia, primate taxonomy. I'll come back to this. Similarly, see, we have recombinant DNA. That means there are too many things to discuss in biological, anthrobiological, or physical anthropology alone. For example, recombinant DNA technology. I'll just brief you what is this recombinant DNA technology. See, now this pandemic is really affecting our human population. Suddenly, right, if you find one population in Africa, say in Kenya or in Tanzania, and if they are totally resistant to this COVID, this coronavirus, and if you find if it is because of their genes, then what we can do, we can isolate that gene, we can transport that, and we can incorporate that in our population. This is recombinant DNA technology. That is identifying the genetic markers which are responsible for that genetic character. Isolating that, there are enzymes using which you can cut that. You have a restriction endonuclease. You can cut that, transport that, and fuse it in the target organism. Now that gene will be there in this organism, which will give them protection against the virus. In a matter of 5 minutes, I just told you what do you mean by recombinant DNA technology, but I'll tell you hardly there are 10 or 15 universities in our country, in which are 15 laboratories in our country, where we can do this recombinant DNA technology, where we can do this. Then now we have DNA fingerprinting. On one side, we have archaeological anthropology. Archaeological anthropology is not just about digging the things. There are many science. There are too much of science in that. Okay, it deals with conservation. It deals with restoration. Okay. Then see, on the other side, right, we have tribal studies. Anthropology as a subject, right, it is largely skewed towards the study of primitive people. In this aspect, anthropology is different from all other subjects. Our subject is totally skewed towards the study of primitive tribes who live in the jungles. Okay. So, before that, is it possible for an arts college in a remote place in West Bengal or in Orissa or in Rajasthan, to have a department of anthropology? To establish the right to do DNA recombinant technology, that for that instrumentation alone, right, we need a huge laboratory for DNA fingerprinting. Then for archaeology, right, again now for dating the objects which we have unearthed, we need again a huge laboratory. Once again, right, we have other aspects. We are also going to discuss the socio-cultural aspect, and we have altogether a different research technology here, or different research methodology here. And as a result, right, this is a very complex subject. That's why it is not possible for an ordinary arts college to have a department of anthropology. Only at huge university levels, right, we can think about having a department of anthropology. And even there, I'll tell you, in most of the universities now, our anthropologists focus only on socio-cultural aspect, but not about the physical aspect. So this is what makes this subject unique. Subject unique. And as I told you, the very first look at the syllabus will give you a very wrong picture. Okay, for people who have no knowledge about science, see, it doesn't mean that there will be somebody who have no knowledge about science, because until our metric level, everyone we all might have read some. So until metric level, we may have at least a little bit of science. Okay, so hardly we can find somebody who have no knowledge, in science. So come back. But even for people from science background, suppose if he is a botany graduate or if it is a zoology graduate, the very first look, right, we have some topics like primate taxonomy. The term taxonomy itself, right, will create a panic for most of the science students. Correlations, binomial nomenclature, trinomial nomenclature, um, scientific names, species name, genus name, family, order, class, phylum. Oh my God! An ordinary botany graduate in his graduation, he will study at least 30 plant families. In zoology, God, it's bit too much actually. In entomology alone, now there are around close to around 28 orders. What is we have taxonomy here? The very word taxonomy here, right? Will think that God, no, I'm not going to take this anthropology as my optional. But let me explain you very clearly. Here in anthropology, we are just going to discuss primate taxonomy, which is just a single page where we are just going to discuss the position of human beings in the animal kingdom, to which phylum we belong, to which class we belong, to which order we belong, and who are our close relatives. So within the superfamily Hominidae, we have greater apes like chimpanzee, gorilla, etc. So how close we are? Orangutans are there. To what extent we are close to the apes? Orangutans share 95% of the human genome. So this is what we discuss in taxonomy, and hardly we discuss family, order, scientific name, etc. here. Okay. So the very first look itself, right, creates a lot of panic, but in reality, there is no need to have any special knowledge in science to read this anthropology. If you know that we have brain here inside the skull, if you know what do you mean by a bone, if you know what do you mean by a muscle, if you know what do you mean by circulatory system, if you know where we have heart, and if you are aware of these simple facts like how human beings harness energy and how this energy is spent by us or how the energy is utilized by our cells for metabolism, this everybody will be knowing from their school days. Okay, we breathe, we inhale oxygen, we eat, that provides us carbohydrate, fat, protein, etc. So how these are metabolized? This is, if you have idea about this thing, that is sufficient. There is no need to have any special knowledge to master this subject. And one very important thing is many times you can see people from commerce background, people from economics background, they tend to score very good marks when compared to people from a science background. Yes, it is true. Many times it happens. The reason is at main examination level, we all think that this is something a very great, a very big examination, and that there is an yes, obviously it's something a great examination, and we always think about impressing our examiner, impressing our examiner. So in this aspect, right? See, there is one small issue in anthropology. As I told you, most of our anthropologists, I tell you, 90% of our anthropologists are from sociology background. BA sociology, MA sociology. Then at MPhil and PhD level, they might have did some specialization in anthropology, and they'll be social anthropologists now. On one fine day, UPSC will call them as, dear professor, can you set a question paper in physical anthropology? He cannot say no. And this professor, right, he might have last time he might have studied science during his school days, some 30 years back. Since then, uh, he might have kept studying the concept like caste system in India, tribal unrest in India, village studies, rural India, etc. And suddenly, right, if you ask them to think something about Australopithecus, Homo erectus, recombinant DNA technology, genetic factors, or Mendelian genetics in man family study, is not that easy for him to think about making a very good question here. And again, the same person is going to evaluate your paper who is having a very little knowledge in science. So, what actually happens here is if he is a commerce student, and he studies anthropology. He'll be just following what we are teaching, or at least what is there in the book. So if you ask them to write 2 plus 2 is equal to, better he can write 4, or somebody may write 5 minus 1 to impress the examiner. But the same thing, right? If you ask a person from medical sciences or a person from biotechnology background to write, they will write this is equal to so this may be a great answer. This may be something very great. If somebody from Princeton University or somebody from Cambridge is going to evaluate your paper, you may get 20 out of 20 for this answer. But our poor examiners, for him, right, this will look as if, what is this? I think this guy had written something in Mandarin. Oh, and he may not be comfortable with your answer. At the end of the day, right, you may end up getting a very poor or less than average marks. Less than average mark. This is one very big issue in anthropology which we need to. As I told you, this anthropologists, right, they beat more than they could chew, which is the real problem for anthropology in India. I told you the problem in biological anthropology. Okay, one side and one end, right, we discuss about organic evolution. In one end, we discuss about recombinant DNA technology. We discuss about gene therapy, DNA fingerprinting. On another end, right now, we discuss about archaeology. Then comes the next important hurdle in this subject, that is the research methodology. Research methodology in anthropology. Anthropology differs from most of the all the other subjects in its unique and peculiar way of doing research. The anthropologists are not going to ask the same set of questions which a psychologist is going to ask, which a sociologist is going to ask, or people from other humanities background is going to ask. I'll tell you one good example. Polyandry is an anthropological curiosity. Polyandry means where there are few societies in which girls are allowed to have multiple husbands. If one girl gets married to some 5 men, we call it as polyandry. Many do here actually. That means maybe after the death of her husband or after divorcing him. But even when a person's, even when a woman's husband is alive, even when she is living with him, if she is permitted to live with 4 or 5 more guys, this we call it as polyandry. Polyandry is an anthropological curiosity. If an anthropologist goes to study a society, he cannot just take a questionnaire. He cannot go and ask, Madam, what is your name? Yeah, what is your age? Yeah, how many husbands you have? Immediately, right, they will take the slipper. Hey, what nonsense you are asking? But polyandry is not something unusual. Polyandry is there in even now. There are few societies in our country where polyandry is permitted. The Khazas in the Uttarakhand, the Todas and the Kotas of Nilgiris. And there is a tribe in Arunachal Pradesh who even now practice polyandry, and polyandry is not a sin. Polyandry is not a sin. See, so we cannot straight away go and ask this type of questions. So in anthropology, excuse me. So while doing anthropological research, now our anthropologist is expected to reach that village, and he is not here to disclose, or sometimes he may or he may not. Mostly he will not disclose why he is there, and he is supposed to learn the native language, and he need to converse with them in their mother tongue, and he need to stay with them for a considerable duration, at least for 2 years, so that he'll be in a position to understand their life cycle rituals. Life cycle rituals. Technically saying, he need to drink with them, he need to dance with them, so that he'll be in a position to ask all these questions with them. So if an anthropologist goes out to do a research, he'll go missing for 2 years. So these are the complex issues which makes anthropology a less common or a less familiar subject at university level. Okay, so anthropology is not a very popular subject at university level, largely because of these issues. So hardly there are few universities which offers a curriculum in anthropology. In UPSC, this gives us a very big comparative advantage when compared to other subjects. This is the only subject in which amateurs are going to set the question paper and amateurs are going to evaluate paper. I'm not here to say this is a very easy subject. This is something very complex. But once when you understand the nuances in the subject, once when you are okay with what your examiner expects from you, with a little bit of scientific knowledge, that means at least the metric level scientific knowledge that is sufficient, with that you will be in a position to score extraordinary marks in the subject. Okay, so as I told you, anthropology again, no. So where lies the advantage here? Where lies the advantage here? The advantage, right? The very big advantage is in paper 2. This entire paper 2, there is no need to read anything. If you are an Indian and had you lived in this country for a considerable duration of time, at least 20 years, right? You might have lived in this country before giving this examination. That alone is sufficient to answer almost every single question in paper 2. Okay. So whatever principles we study in the paper 1, that we apply in paper 2. Here, right, part of this deals with Indian prehistory. That is one thing which we need to read. Then most of the syllabus here deals with rural India. Okay, our village, our Indian traditional social system. Traditional social system. Like what do you mean by judgment system? What do you mean by caste system? And there are few philosophies like Purushartha, Rina, Rebirth, Doctrine of Karma. Anybody can speak about Doctrine of Karma. It's not something so difficult. It's not something like nuclear physics here. Then there is another part which deals with the tribal India. This is only one area in which there is some need for you to make some updates from the current affairs. If there are any changes in our forest policy, our forest laws, or our policy towards tribal people, that we need to update. But the remaining entire major chunk deals with the tribal studies. Who are tribes in our country? Is it possible to define a tribe? Can anybody define who is a tribe? No. Anthropologists tried a lot, and even in our Constitution Assembly, our constitution makers, they tried to define, give a definition to tribe. Jawaharlal Nehru, he intervened and said, when our anthropologists were not in a position to define a tribe, how can we do it? So better please do not try, do not, there is no need to define who is a tribe. In India, President by a separate notification, he includes a category of people as tribes. Or he can also move them out, but the second thing never happens. In the part 2 of paper 2, we discuss in length, it deals only about the tribal issues, the problems which they face, like relocation, rehabilitation. Whenever there is a multi-purpose project, we might have heard about a large chunk of primitive or tribal people who will be relocated, and always there will be some issues. So earlier they might have lived in a small hut with a thatched roof, and government, right, they may government sometimes, right, they may even provide them a concrete home with all modern amenities. Still, these people will show a lot of resistance to move. What exactly is the problem? The problem is not about the opportunities, and problem is not about the livelihood. There are number of other factors in which a tribal life is intertwined. Okay, so what all these things are? So the problems like land alienation, rehabilitation, health issues, illiteracy. Okay, that we will discuss. Then what are all the programs which our government have designed since independence to deal with the development of tribal people, and most importantly, how in the name of development, how we pulled these people out of their original habitat, and how we imposed our standards on these people, and in reality we didn't make them happy. In reality we didn't make them happy. Come on. So that's what we discussed in the part 2 of paper 2. Then come back. So there is a comparative advantage here. This entire syllabus in the paper 2, you can cover it in a matter of 20 or 25 days. So after that, right, we can just enrich whatever you have made until your examination. So come back to paper 1. As I told you, the anthropologist bit more than they could chew. There is a capacity how much you can keep in our mouth and how much you can chew and eat. They have kept more than what actually they could chew. As a result, right, they were neither in a position to bite and chew it nor they can spit it out. To that extent, right, they managed to accommodate in the name of studying. So anthropology is a holistic subject, no doubt, in the name of including all the aspects of human life. But they have made the subject very complex, and here lies our advantage. Guys, had there been practicals at mains examination, anthropology will be the toughest optional. We will not even advise anybody to think about anthropology option. But here, right, it's just a matter of only theory. Theoretically, right, anybody can speak about anything. Theoretically, right, we can just even speak how a PSLV get propelled, how a GSLV works, how a cryogenic engine works. But if somebody asks him to do some practicals, is it possible? Same is the case here. DNA fingerprinting, we have forensic anthropology, identification of a dead person using the mortal remains. Theoretically, anybody can say just by analyzing the bone, analyzing its anatomy, we can decide whether it is a male or female. Then by studying the ossification centers, these are nothing but a calcium rich region in our bone which looks opaque in an X-ray. Just by counting that, we can say what is the age of an individual. If they ask us to count, we cannot do it 100% sure. But theoretically, we can try it, right? This makes the subject very, very easy. Theoretically, it is very, very easy to read the subject, but once if you have practicals, this is going to be a very big help. This is going to be a very big help. Now, guys, cool down. So now I will discuss with you what makes this subject easy. See, I told you about the biological anthropology or physical anthropology and what are all the things we discuss in that. Organic evolution is one very important topic here. Organic evolution followed by the evolution of human beings or the descent of man. So what do you mean by evolution? We say keep saying evolution, evolution, evolution. Evolution means change. And the changes produced by the evolution will always make an organism progressive. You all are Homo sapiens now. And you all are preparing for this IAS examination. So in a matter of 2 years, few will become Homo sapiens. Homo sapiens IASNCs. Few will become Homo sapiens IPSNCs. Few will become Homo sapiens IRSNCs. Will you be the same after that? Certainly no. The way in which you speak, the way in which you dress up, or the materials which we use, everything is going to change. That is evolution. And you cannot think about coming back to your original way of living. So evolution means change, and the changes produced by this evolution are always progressive. In this, right, we discuss about how organisms evolved. We all know that organisms, right, got evolved from aquatic. So evolution started from from water. Okay, so few nitrogen molecules also managed to combine to form a cell, and unicellular organism become multicellular. So the first organisms on earth were aquatic. Then came the amphibians. Amphibians can live both under aquatic as well as under a terrestrial condition, marine as a terrestrial condition. Then came the full-fledged landed animals. These animals got diversified, and even we human beings are part of that. And from one such animal, right, human beings got evolved. This is organic evolution in simple. You might have heard about the Dashavadar in Hindu myth. The first avatar, right, is a fish. The second avatar, Kurma avatar, is a turtle. The third avatar, Varaha avatar, is a wild boar. Then we have one Narasimha avatar, half animal and half human being. Then we have Vamana avatar, the short statured version. See, indirectly, this also implies organic evolution. That is, life originated under aquatic conditions. Organic evolution states that life originated under aquatic conditions, and then came the terrestrial animals. See, the first avatar is fish, followed by Kurma avatar, an amphibian which can live under marine as well as terrestrial condition. Then comes the full-fledged land animals. Then this Narasimha Avatar, it indirectly implies the ape stage of human evolution. That means like Australopithecus or Homo erectus, where human beings had half human or half ape-like or half primitive characters. Then comes, say, Rama. Always you can see Rama and Lakshmana to carry a bow and arrow with them. That indirectly implies the hunting and gathering stage of human evolution. Then comes Lord Krishna and his brother Balarama. We can always see Balarama carrying a plow in his hand. Indirectly, that implies the agriculture stage of human evolution. And you might have heard about the concubial relations which Lord Krishna had when he was in Gokula. Yes, okay, it is with the advent of agriculture, right, human population got exploded, which provided human beings to indulge in this type of socio-biological and cultural events. Indirectly, the elements of organic evolution is found in our myth, and we do not know whether it is an accidental coincidence or our ancestors, right, had good knowledge about how organisms on earth evolved. Okay, so then in this, right, we'll discuss about the rules of organic evolution, then pre-Darwinian, Darwinian, post-Darwinian, and then the synthetic theory of evolution, which will be followed by the descent of man. Okay, again, see the very first, they look at the syllabus, the very front page, right, it looks so scary. See, they have kept few topics like skeletal changes due to erect posture and its implications. Comparative anatomy of man and apes. What is this? Even people from medical sciences, they will have knowledge about human anatomy only. But what in anthropology, after studying human anatomy, is there a need to read ape anatomy also so that we can compare human anatomy with ape anatomy? I'll tell you here, we discuss anatomy, no doubt. But we discuss anatomy only in the evolutionary point of view and not just the total anatomy. There are hundreds of bones and muscles in our body, but hardly right we are going to discuss some 20 to 30 terms, okay, which we discuss it will become very easy. Okay, and the evolutionary significance of these anatomical features. Simple thing, our lower jaw. Technically, this is called as mandible. So, when some 3 million years ago, when there was a need to eat uncooked raw meat, Do not say that human beings never, our ancestors never ate meat. So there were conditions when we human beings were forced to eat meat. Hot, hot. So when the cold ice ages gripped, when cold ice ages gripped our earth, hardly there was any opportunity for people to think about raising a crop or simply relying on fruits and nuts. Okay, when most of our earth was covered by glaciers and ice sheets, hardly our ancestors can think about surviving only on vegetarian food. So that environment forced them to eat meat, to hunt animals. But 3 million years of our ancestors had no good technology in making fire and having a control over the fire. Homo erectus just before 1 million years were the first ape who had control over the fire, who can make fire and who can confine the fire within a particular place. So what about our ancestors who lived 4 5 million years ago? They had no control over fire and they were forced to hunt animals, and most of the time they'll be eating the raw meat. Again, when you say about raw meat, right, do not think something like this. I'll tell you, there are few eateries here in Bengaluru who serve raw meat. There are few Japanese eateries. They say that is a sixth taste, seventh taste, and they serve processed fish, processed prawn, etc., which they won't cook. But when our ancestors, when they were forced to eat such a raw meat, meat means not the chicken which we are eating nowadays. So that is almost as soft as a bread. When they were forced to eat such a raw meat, they need to bite, chew, 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 and they need to have huge muscles and a big jaw here, big lower, big. This technical is mandible. So using that, right, they can bite, chew, and they can think about eating. So there was a need for them to have a large and a massive lower jaw. In the course of evolution, when we started eating processed food, slowly the need for that greater jaw declined, and in the course of evolution, in the matter of 3 or 4 million years, in the last 30 or 40 lakh years, this lower jaw became smaller, smaller, and smaller, and now we have a small jaw. So our mandible, right, currently is much smaller when compared to the mandible of the apes. That is our ancestor who lived some 400 million years, sorry, some 4 million years. Then our vertebral column. If you buy a car nowadays, right, people they focus a lot about the car seats having a lumbar support. That is the car seat toward the end, right, there will be a support in the seat here, the curve here. See, our vertebral column is not a single arched one, our backbone. There are multiple curves in our backbone, two curves. This is actually a weight bearing modification. Okay. On the other hand, when we had quadrupedal locomotion, when we were moving in trees and trees, our vertebral column used to have a single arch like this. So, the single arched vertebral column becoming multiple arcs. Like this, there are some 20 or 25 anatomical terms which we will be discussing, and there is no need to have any great knowledge in human anatomy or in science to discuss about the apes. So, we are just going to discuss only those anatomical changes which happened during the course of evolution, hardly at the maximum some 30 terms. Okay. Then now let us discuss about the socio-cultural anthropology. Socio-cultural anthropology. So what is a society? What is a culture? See, social is different from being cultural. So you might have heard about the term culture, culture, culture. And there are Many organizations in our country, many social organizations which think about or which deals with the conservation of culture. They want to conserve the culture. They want to conserve the rich traditions of our culture. But so pity, the very, very important aspect of culture is dynamic and culture keeps changing. Nobody can think about put an end or nobody can think about conserving culture. You cannot do that. Culture keeps changing, culture keeps evolving. That is the very basic aspect of culture. First of all, what do you mean by culture? E.B. Taylor, he defines what is the meaning of culture. According to him, culture is that complex whole. Culture is not an ordinary whole, it is a complex whole which includes arts, crafts, morals, language, okay, values, faith, etc., which man gains or which man acquires as being a part of a society. It's very simple. Okay, we know about Mowgli, our Jungle Book hero. He was left alone in a jungle. Can we expect him to learn to make idli, to make dosa, to make chapati? Or can you expect him not to speak in English or in Hindi? In movie he speaks, that's a different thing. But if somebody is born like that, somebody is isolated, then hardly there is any chance for him to learn culture. Culture is learned. So we, being a member of a society, suppose if I am there in Bengal, as a part of that society now, I have an opportunity to learn Bengali. I have an opportunity to know how to make rasgulla because that is a common dish there. People have it as a breakfast for the breakfast. So generally everyone knows at least how to make a rasgulla. So being a member of a society, what people learn, what they keep it with themselves, and how they enrich that in the generation, and how they pass it on to the next generation. This is culture. For example, see, culture includes both tangible and non-tangible aspects. That is material and non-material aspects. The dress which we wear, okay, the food which we eat, these are material aspects. On the other hand, the language which we speak, the values which we have, the faith which we have, we cannot touch these. These are non-material or non-tangible aspects of culture. So, as I told you, culture is learned. One cannot make his own culture. For example, the language which see the dress which we are wearing. In a lifetime, is it possible for an individual to learn, to know suppose if he is isolated completely, is it possible for him to know how he can rise a cotton crop, how he can extract a lint out of that, how he can weave it into a cloth, and finally stitching it into a dress? Our ancestors, long back few thousand years ago, somehow through trial and error, through experiments, and it may be an accident, they learned how they can extract the fiber or lint out of cotton, or how they can weave it into, how they can make a thread out of it, and how they can weave it into a cloth, and finally how they can make a cut and stitch it into a dress. With every passing generation, we acquire this knowledge from our ancestor, and we try to improve it. And now in this generation, right, we are wearing the finest of fine clothes. This is something evolved, something right which we learned for few thousand years, and now we are keeping it in our generation. We will enrich this in our generation. We will further improve it. How we will improve it? We will tear it here, we'll tear it here, we'll tear it here, and we'll pass it on to the next generation. We call it as something style. Okay, so culture is learned. Culture is something, right, which we learn from our surroundings, and one cannot. The very important aspect of culture is culture keeps changing, and one cannot put a break here. It is practically impossible to conserve any culture. Okay, so there is one huge topic in anthropology which deals with the society and the culture, and these topics in anthropology revolves around the twin concept of ethnocentrism and cultural relativism. Who is ethnocentric? If somebody thinks that their culture is superior and all other culture are inferior, they are ethnocentric. That is, ethnocentrism means there are few people who have undue pride over their own culture. We call them as ethnocentric. And if a person is ethnocentric, and he will always have uh, a different opinion or something, a less significant opinion about others' culture. And if he goes to study others' culture, right, he will view it only from his own point of view. And this will affect the study of culture. I'll tell you one good example. This is a universal example. I hope I'm not, nobody, I'm not here to offend anyone. Nobody will get offended with what I'm going to say now. In our country, Punjabis are ethnocentric. They are always proud to say that I'm from Punjab, I'm from Punjab. And they think their culture is always superior. And if they look at somebody from deep south in our country, maybe from TN or from Kerala, I was thinking, hey, what these guys are, why they are not wearing shoes, why they are always wearing slippers and sandals, why can't they wear shoes? See, I'm wearing shoe, my culture is superior. This is ethnocentrism. And there is an antidote for that in anthropology, that is cultural relativism. Here, one need to view people's culture from their point of view and not from their own point of view. They need to view culture from that people's point of view. Say, be it in TN or be it in Kerala. Rainfall will be very heavy during rainy season, and in Kerala, at least for 6 months, there will be a continuous waterlogging condition, at least for 3 or 4 months in TN. Is it possible for somebody to walk here in the field wearing a shoe? It's not all possible. So, environment here permits them to wear only slippers and not shoes. So that's why they have the culture. The simplest definition for culture was given by the cultural ecologist. According to them, culture is nothing but man's adaptation to the environment. Okay. So once when you understand this twin concept of ethnocentrism and cultural relativism, then our approach towards the study of culture will become altogether different. First of all, we will not be judgmental and we will not have any prejudices in studying others' culture. So this is the most important thing which if you keep this in mind, the entire socio-cultural anthropology will become very, very simple. Very, very simple. Nice. We are going to discuss about marriage, family, kinship. How many of you have no idea about what is marriage and what is family? We all will have lot of idea about marriage and family, but one interesting thing here in anthropology is we are going to discuss about these cultural aspects from the primitive people's point of view. We are just going to study these cultural elements as it is found among the primitive tribes. So 90% of this content right deals with the study of primitive people. So what type of marriage as an institution, how it is found among the primitive people. So what about their family? What about their kinship? Okay, so this is what we discussed. This makes the subject very interesting. And one important thing is most of the content in anthropology were made during the 19th century and the early half of 20th century until the peak of colonialism. With the end of colonialism, right, even there was a decline in anthropology. Okay, and by that time, right, by the mid 20th century, almost anthropologists managed to study almost all the known culture of the world. After that, right, hardly we can see any culture just not studied. And with the development of communication technology, transport technology, the relative isolation of the people also ended. As a result, right now, the various cultural aspects got diffused very easily, and most of the people have lost their tribal identity and they are within national mainstream. Now hardly we can see any people who are wearing dresses made out of grasses, bamboos, or dresses made out of leaves and barks. Even in the remotest of remote corner, even the Jaravas right nowadays, they are wearing dresses made out of cotton textiles. Okay, so hard. So 90 percentage of for the socio-cultural factors which we are going to discuss here were the conditions of the past. Here lies the very big advantage of the subject. In this entire socio-cultural anthropology, there is no need to update anything because most of the things were the condition of the past. Be it marriage, be it family, be it kinship. Then we have religion. In religion, right, we are not going to discuss the religious dogmas. We are not here to study the philosophy. We are not here to study the various religious dogmas, etc. Even here, right, we are going to focus the religion among the primitive people. So, what type of religion they practice? What do you mean by animism? What is animatism? What is totemism? What is physicism? What is naturism? So, what type of worship? So, recently, yesterday, I read one news that in Andhra, one tribal man was brutally killed by the tribal people because they thought that that guy was indulging in witchcraft. In every tribal society, witch hunt is very common, and if they identify somebody as a witch, they will kill him. Okay, then we know about black magic, white magic. This is what we discuss here in religion, and not about the Hinduism, Christianity, Islam, Jainism, Buddhism. No, nothing. We are going to discuss about the religious philosophy or the religion as it is found among the primitive people. Then we have political anthropology. Again, right here we are going to discuss about the law and justice in primitive society. So, what are all the ways of how? So, in what way the primitive law is different from our modern law? In what are all the possible ways, right? People in primitive society is a established guild. They do not have a court, but they will have village panchayat where they will ask the accused to come and how they are establishing the guild. They have their own way, right? They may ask them to take a oath there before the god. They may ask them to do some divination. They may ask them to walk on fire to check whether they did the crime or not. And again, the punishment here they are not going to imprison them, and even if it is a capital punishment. Okay, so death for death is something very common. Murder for killing. See, if somebody kills somebody, most of the primitive law says that even he will be killed. On nowhere, right, nowhere we can expect a judicial hanging. They will just behead him, or they'll just stone him to death. So this is what we discuss here. So the law and the justice in primitive society are how the political system got evolved from the most primitive stage. What is a band? What is a tribe? What is a chiefdom? What is a kingdom? And how this got evolved into a nation state. This is what we discuss in political anthropology. Then we have linguistics. Though linguistic anthropology is a separate branch in anthropology, in UPSC we have only a very minimum of syllable left here for us to discuss. Okay, in culture theories, right, we discuss about Levi-Strauss, where we will discuss about structural linguistics to some extent. Then, in the remaining chapter number 7, we discuss about the origin of religion, how language originated. Some very interesting theories are there, like Bow theory. That means human beings, right? They imitated the barking dog, and he started speaking. Okay, sometimes, right, the pain, suddenly because of pain, man started shouting, and this is how language originated. Like that, right, we have some theories of origin of language. Then after that, language and culture. So how our culture gets influenced by the language, and in return, how language influences culture. It's both the way. We can expect, right? Suppose if a guy is from a slum in a city, and if a guy is from a very posh area in a city, we can expect a difference in the language which they speak. Language they speak. Or somebody is from a very rural area, and somebody, right, he is born and brought up in Mumbai. Okay, the way in which they both speak, there will be a lot of difference. So, culture influences language. At the same time, even language gets influenced by the culture. And finally, the social context of language used. This is what we discuss in linguistic anthropology. So, the entire social anthropology, right, we focus much about the primitive society and the culture of the primitive people, and there is no need to worry about the new age tensions and stress. For example, though in marriage, there's a small column about marriage instability where we discuss about divorce, and that is only a small aspect here. We will not focus much about divorce here. Okay, so much of the topic here deals with the primitive way of living, the primitive way of acquiring a mate. For example, among the cookies of Manipur, there is one special way of acquiring a mate. They acquire a mate by probation. If somebody is interested in a girl, he can go and ask their family members, "Uncle, I want to marry your daughter." They'll say, "Wait, let me ask my daughter." And if she wishes, then they will allow them to live together for 2 or 3 months. After 2 or 3 months, they can come and they need to report. I'm biologically, I'm psychologically, I'm comfortable with this boy. So if the girl says like that, then they will get them married. They say, "No, daddy, this he is such an idiot. He keeps beating me. He abuses me. Better I won't get married." Then they will annul the marriage. But the boy need to pay compensation to the girl for the time period in which he lived with her. Can somebody believe that such a thing exists? And even premarital sex is not something uncommon among the primitive people. In most of the societies, premarital sex is permitted. So this is what we discuss here in marriage. It's not discussed in family and not all those socio-cultural things which pertains to our modern way of living. And this makes this subject very, very, very interesting. Very, very interesting. Okay. Then this is all we discuss in paper one. Then, as I told you, there is one, the part two of paper one that deals with the most of the topics in physical anthropology, where we discuss about applied human genetics, Mendelian genetics in man family study. Okay, then we have race and racism. We have ecological anthropology. Okay, then we have human growth and development. Okay, what do you mean by fertility, fecundity, all these stuffs, and finally there is one applied part where we study how the knowledge which we gained in anthropology, how we can put that for the benefit of for the human beings or benefit of the human society. That is applied anthropology. And again here, guys, there is no need that you should have a very fantastic knowledge about genetics here. There is no need to have any special knowledge in science here. If you know what, say, uh, if you know that there are few characters which are inherited, that is sufficient. Okay, and there are few basic laws here that will make you comfortable. For example, the Mendel's law of dominance, law of segregation, law of independent assortment. These three laws, if you know, that is sufficient. So, but before that, we'll give you a very good introduction on even if you have no knowledge in science, absolutely, if you have no knowledge in science, well and good, we'll be very happy because you will just follow what we are discussing from the beginning, right? We'll be discussing what is a cell, how the cells divide, what do you mean by mutation, what do you mean by okay, cell organelles. So from that, right, what is the DNA? What do you mean by DNA replication? What do you mean by uh, uh, so what is that enzyme polymerase? So now, right, because of the pandemic, you should be comfortable with one term, that is polymerase chain reaction. We will discuss that in length. What is that polymerase chain reaction? Why we do that, or how that reaction happens naturally in our system, etc. So there is no need to have any special knowledge in science to master this. Kavita madam, I will be teaching. Along with that, Kavita madam, she will be teaching the genetics part, and she is an expert in biotechnology. Okay, even if you have zero knowledge in science, she will explain you what is a DNA, what are those nitrogenous bases, and how they combine. What is a pentose sugar there? What is a phosphate molecule there? And how it combines to form, or how it combines to give a double helix structure. Okay, and how a DNA replicates. Okay, and how it leads to protein synthesis. Everything right up. Even if you have zero knowledge in science, you'll be taught with all these things. And I would like to tell you the utility of optional subject in your main examination. I'll tell you, apart from civil engineering, mechanical engineering, I think Each and every other optionals, right, have some utility in the general studies. Similarly, same is the case with anthropology also. Consistently, right, at least there will be some 3 or 4 questions in general studies which will be directly or indirectly from anthropology. That means once when you're okay with anthropology, that will help you to solve at least some 3 or 4 questions in your GS prelims. Last year, there were 4 good number of questions. One was about a ape who lived in Tibet, that is the Denisovians, who are nothing but the Asian form of Neanderthals. We discussed in length about them. Okay, then there was one question about primitive tribal groups, PTGs. Now they are called as a particularly vulnerable tribal populations. There is one full segment which deals with the tribal people, and we discuss in length about each and every aspect of the primitive tribes. So there is nothing to worry about that. Then we have this thing. There was one question about Indus Valley civilization. Yes, we study this about this in history also. But in anthropology, we discussed that in a different angle. So, how changes in the environment resulted in the development or evolution of that civilization. And there was one more question from Paleolithic culture again. Straight away from anthropology, right, there are some 4 questions. And this year, again, though not directly, indirectly, right, there were 2 questions, right, one that we can answer easily. One is about the genetic changes which we can introduce to an individual. We can do it at embryo level. That's what we discuss here in the gene therapy in anthropology. Okay, so immediately after fertilization, immediately after the fusion of a sperm and a ovum, we get a zygote. That is a single cell stage. If you want to do any genetic engineering, you can try it at that particular stage. Because once when it becomes, once when it divides, we cannot introduce this in each and every single cell. And there was one question about the difference between the plant cell and animal cell. We discussed in length about the eukaryotic cell, prokaryotic cell, animal cell, plant cell, in length, etc. And one more thing, anthropology as such, right? See, if you study this subject with some passion, I tell you, this is going to change the way in which you look at the society. You will not have prejudices over people. You will not have say, hey, what they are practicing, so what they are eating, what they are speaking. You will not have any prejudices over any segment, and you will have better understanding why they are doing that. That will altogether change the way in which you will look at the society. Okay. Fine then. So guys, this is all about anthropology. So this is a very simple subject, and as I told you, the anthropologists who are going to set the question papers, even they are not experts. So most of the questions here will be straightforward. They will just throw it on our face. Australopithecus, discuss. DNA fingerprinting, discuss, that's it. There is no need to critically analyze everything. There is no need to critically evaluate anything. As a result, right now, there is no need to squeeze our brain to read much. If you know this is the content, yeah, if I read that, that is sufficient. Hardly there are few areas, right, in which they may ask you to critically analyze or critically evaluate. Maybe in few areas in culture theories where they may ask you whether the functionalism critically, they may ask you to analyze the utility, or critically they may ask you to analyze the functionalist approach by Malinowski. There you can say, yes, functionalism, right, lacks dynamism. Functionalism does not explain change, etc. Okay, so this is such an interesting subject, and once again I repeat, there is no need to have any special knowledge in science to master this subject. Okay, your metric level knowledge, if you know what is a cell, if you know what do you mean by blood, if you know what is a bone, if you know where we have brain, if you know where we have eyes and tongue, that is sufficient. Okay, with that knowledge, right, we can make you to score very fantastic marks in anthropology. And absolutely, there is no rule that this subject is meant for science students. As I told you earlier, even sometimes science students tend to make the things complex, and in that process, they may even confuse the examiner. Okay. Apart from this is a very great subject. Okay. Happy reading. I'll be here to guide you, and our association will not last just until the course. I'll make it sure I will establish the contact until your main examination. We will remain in touch. Okay, because some 1 month or 1 or 2 months before the main examination, generally, right, I call all our previous students because um, our examiner, right, he'll be influenced by the recent developments, and we can see a lot of influence of the recent events in the question paper. So just before 1 month, right, we can analyze it and analyze that what are the areas in which we need to focus. So just 1 month before the examination, once again we will sit there, once again we will discuss what are all the things we need to read and what are all the things we need to focus, and how we need to analyze and what are the particular aspect which we need to focus here. So I will remain in touch until your main examination, and hopefully, right, I wish you. Before that, I'd like to congratulate you for choosing civil services as your career. I wish you success, a quick success in your endeavor. Okay, fine. We will meet again in our regular anthropology lectures. Thank you.